Hey guys, recently I was thinking about this concept of how we would like things to be simple and clear and black and white. But you hear this phrase all the time, life's not so simple, things aren't black and white, there's a gray area, there's this whole thing, right? So I challenge you to challenge that premise, because the truth is the world exists based on simple truths. And even when you look at a computer system, right, and computer programming, like binary, it's ones and zeros. When you look at photography, there's positive and negative. When you look at business, finance, etc., there's really clear metrics and rules and systems. And that's when systems work well, or at least easily. And so you might say, well, then in the soft sciences, things aren't so clear, so black and white. Math is one thing, but what about, sociology, right? The study of people and culture, etc. So things are not so black and white, right? Quote unquote. But I challenge that premise because if you look at the Asadas, right, the tree of knowledge, the sin of Adam and Eve wasn't that they somehow, let me start off this way. Let me say what it was. It was a mixing of good and evil. It wasn't that they now had knowledge. It was that it became mixed. It wasn't clear. Things that used to be 100% holy or 100% positive, and things that used to be 100% negative or 100% evil, now things were not so clear. And we see that in people, right? Sometimes you meet people and it's like there's some really great parts about them and there's some not so great parts about them. I mean, even with your friends and family, if we were to remove everyone from our lives that did something wrong or hurt us, then we wouldn't have any friends or associates or colleagues or even people we are acquaintances with, because everybody has faults. And so nowhere is it more clear than in an individual person that good and evil are mixed. And so what's the remedy, right? Because it seems like I'm contradicting myself. I just said that I want people to challenge the concept that there's this gray area and that things aren't so black and white, and perhaps things can be very clear and they can be really pure. And then I'm also saying that in each individual there's this mix of good and bad. And ever since the sin of eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And so is there a contradiction? And what really is the point? I think the solution, the answer to this is that if you follow God's law, everything's crystal clear. It's black and white. You know what the right thing to do is. If you're following halacha, if you're following Torah, it is clear what the right thing to do is. And in situations where it's interpersonal and you're not sure, usually that has to do with ego. You want to tell someone the right thing, you want to rebuke maybe, but you're afraid it'll hurt your friendship or what they might think of you. So that's ego. The truth is, the answer is, and there's very clear instructions on this, that if you see someone doing something against God's law, you have to tell them. First in private, and if that doesn't work, then you, I think the next step, let me see if I can remember this. First you tell them in private, then you try to go to someone they know who they'll listen to, and then if both those things don't work, then you do it in public. And so there's really clear rules on all of this. And I hesitate to even say rules because it's wisdom, it's guidance. It's not, just a mathematical or computerized way. It takes into account human understanding and human experience and emotions. And there is an answer. There is the right way to do things. There is a right way. And that's what's so important, I think, for people to know, that if you're following God's law, and if you're Jewish, you're following halacha, the code of Jewish law and Torah, then you really have nothing to worry about. It's crystal clear, and the answers are there for you. And so as we are in Geula, but as we become aware of it and our eyes open and more people are aware of it, then you can say, things are crystal clear. It is black and white. There is no gray area. There's no confusion. There doesn't need to be confusion. There can be answers, clarity, solutions. And usually it has to do with just following God's law. And I challenge people to come up with situations where following God's law doesn't come up with the right answer, because I don't think there's a good example of this. And again, if you're following God's law, He created the world. It's His world. I just live in it. He made the rules, and He didn't make the rules for us to suffer. And so when we stop thinking that we know better than God, chas v'shalom, God forbid, then maybe we'll start seeing that peace and joy of what it means to really know God, which is to follow His law, to live His law, and to do His will.